Illuvium has only just begun. There is so much coming to Illuvium in 2023 that I'm about to blow your mind, and I don't want to waste any of your time. So I'm going to run through them really quickly, what they might mean, so that you get caught up on what is happening in Illuvium and what is coming to Illuvium very, very soon. Now, I'm not going to go too heavy into dates. I'm sorry to tell you that. I'm going to estimate dates a little bit, kind of like what I've seen in the community, things like that. There's no inside information here from the council. We don't have any dates or anything like that. So don't go to that assumption. I'm going to be estimating mostly like late Feb or late March or whatever kind of, but I'm probably going to be way off. So definitely keeping that in mind. Let's jump into it. So the first thing that we need to talk about what's coming in Illuvium 2023 is private beta 3. So what this includes is the Ascendant mode, which would be PvP essentially. So you battle against another player and you get to test all the stuff out. Hopefully you get to build your own deck. They'll also be adding things like emotes and skins. We'd have to assume anything they're adding to Ascendant, they would also mostly add into the survival mode. They'll be adding the new Illuvials in. That'll definitely be in survival mode as well. And they'll be building out their AI balancing mechanism. Now, I don't know if that's going to come out for private beta 3, but it's definitely going to come out before the game launches, or at least that's what Aaron's really hoping. We're not sure if it's going to, but balancing the game before the game drops is very important to Illuvium and the Illuvium team. So we have to assume that the AI balancing mechanisms they're going to be building are going to be built alongside PvP. So that might make PvP take a little bit longer than some of you might have been expecting. When I might expect private beta 3 to drop, probably late March, maybe April. I don't think it's going to drop in Q1 of 2023, to be honest, because things like Illuvium Zero and Illuvitars and stuff, I think have a higher priority at the moment, and they're working out PvP at the moment. The next thing we're going to talk about is Overworld Private Beta 2. This is going to have new movement mechanics. It's going to have some polishing with the wakes and the way they pathfind and things like that. Currently, the wakes just kind of go in a circle. Some are fast, some are slow. They're in kind of random locations too. I don't know what's up with that, but they're going to be polishing all that, which is exciting, and a feature to make the world more populated. Now, we don't exactly know what Aaron means by this. I don't think he's referring to the plants themselves. I think he's referring to some sort of connectivity with other players, but not necessarily like you're walking around together. There's going to be some sort of quests or maybe NPCs, but it's anyone's guess on that one, I'm afraid. And he's also talked about, I think he tried to hide it. He was like a feature to make the gameplay more frantic, but I think most people are going to assume that that's the plants that can attack you that Grant is always going on about. I don't know how much more interesting that's going to make the game, but I'm fun to see it. I'm excited. I think it'll be pretty interesting. I'm pretty good at shooting stuff, so I'm not too worried, but I know some people have trouble with the first person shooter mechanics of the game. When Overworld Private Beta 2 might drop, it's anyone's guess for this one. I have no idea. I'd have to assume at least a month or two before the game comes out, so maybe also like late April, May, or even June, July. That's probably the one I'm the least concerned about. I really have no idea. I think before Ascendant mode, before Private Beta 3. So the next thing we need to talk about is the cinematic trailer. Now, the plan is obviously to release this before the main launch, but it contains a lot of lore and story elements, so I would be expecting it to drop really soon before the main launch. I don't think it's going to drop like early next year, or it's going to drop early 2023, sorry, or it's going to drop like in Q1 or anything like that. I think it's going to be quite late, so I wouldn't be holding your breath too heavy for it, but I could be wrong. Maybe they're going to drop it really, really early and just tease us with the amount of lore that's in there. So the next thing we can talk about is merchandise store. Now, Kieran has said that it's about 85% of the way there, and he's been receiving packages and things, testing out all the stuff, making all the quality is really, really good. The other thing is that plushie samples are on their way, so plushies are probably going to be involved with wave 1 of merchandise. We would hope, but it's not necessarily guaranteed. And the metal plates and stuff, and we'll talk about that in a second. But 85% of the way, I would say maybe February. I think February we're going to get something. It might not be every single item, like maybe only t-shirts or only caps or something. But February I think is when the merchandise store is going to start kicking off, either that or March, and then it's going to progress over time. I don't know if they drop every item at once. If they do, then I would expect the merchandise store to come a bit later. The next thing we'll talk about is Illuvitars. Now, this is even closer than I thought it was going to be. I thought this was going to be coming out in March or April or something, but it's sounding like it's maybe going to be Q1 of 2023, but I have no information on how close it is. I just know that Kieran's been working on the scenes very heavily on it, although we haven't really heard a whole lot. So it's anyone's guess on this one. That being said, the metal plates are mostly prepared, he said, and he's gotten them cheaper than Displate, which is pretty cool. So I'm not going to look up the price for that, but it's for a very reasonable price, and he can get them at bulk, even though they're one of ones and things. It's going to be revolutionary in NFTs to be able to get one of ones at bulk all over the world. It's going to be really, really cool, and I can't wait to hang as many as I can behind my wall here, okay? It's not too far away, and there are lots of great partnerships to go with Illuvium. Obviously, I don't actually know who he's partnered with, but he's guaranteed the community that they're big. So let's just leave it at that. And he makes jokes about McDonald's having a partnership all the time. I'm 90% sure they're just jokes, but you never know. The next thing we'll talk about is Governance V2, which offers far more decentralization by adding more members to the Governance Council and spreading out the load of the workload, money, and all the rest of it. And there's going to be more variety and expertise, which will better Illuvium and the DAO in the future. And I'm very excited for Governance V2. Obviously, I've been helping do my part in creating it, gather community sentiment and feedback, and we keep progressing it. I'm very excited to see the future of Governance V2. Timeline-wise, this is kind of up to me. I want to get it done by February. I really do. I have no idea how long it's going to take. There is a lot of legal stuff and things that we've got to manage along those lines, so there's no guarantee on timelines or anything for that, unfortunately. But Q1, I would be very, very disappointed, like very disappointed if it wasn't finished by Q1. So let's put it that way. Or it wasn't implemented, not necessarily finished. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the public beta launch. So this is when all 3 games are available to everyone and they're all interconnected. The Arena, Overworld, and Illuvium Zero. They cannot launch one by one because they all depend on each other. So the problem here is that if one of the things holds back, for example, we haven't even seen PvP yet. If one thing holds back the other 2, then that's just life. Like Overworld might be completely ready and Illuvium Zero might be up and running perfect. But if PvP is not done, then they can't release all 3. So that's something that we've got to consider. And I think it's going to come out early Q3 2023, but that is a complete guess. So keep that in mind. I think if we're lucky, late Q2, but there's so much coming out that I don't see how that's possible. The other thing is that the fuel for ETH systems need to be ready, where you can trade your fuel for ETH in the balancer pool and stuff. They haven't quite started constructing that yet, so that's probably where some of the time is going to go. However, apparently connecting to the blockchain isn't overly difficult, according to Aaron. So maybe it's a much simpler task than I might think. The other thing is that Illuvium tests many of the same systems, things like using IMX, burning accessories to combine your Illuvium and things like that. So I think it's safe to assume that if Illuvium comes out relatively early and it does really, really well, then that bodes well for the rest of the Illuvium ecosystem and the launch date not being pushed too far back. But Illuvium has some problems, then we're looking to have a couple more problems. That's just the reality of the situation. So they're also eventually going to decommission Illuvial Wakes for Illuvium. I'm not going to talk too much on that. Basically, they want to turn it into a Monster Hunter-esque experience in the future, but they're still going to involve wakes in some way. We have to shoot something and things like that. I actually really like that part of the gameplay loop, so I hope they keep it in a really creative way. But also I'd love to see Illuvials roaming around. I mean, who wouldn't? The other thing that they talked about in their stream was future games. Kart Racer and Dating Sim keep coming up, but Aaron said that efficiency is key and that things that use their existing assets to push the franchise forward and get out a library of games is probably going to be a priority. Things like a MOBA, I could see an MMO not being too bad, but you'd have to start quite small and maybe that'd be a bit, it wouldn't be too great. Things like a MOBA, a real-time strategy game, probably have a lot of the assets already, so that'd be pretty cool to see. And I don't think there's heaps of other things. You could extend auto chess. I mean, there's maybe more game modes and things that would be probably pretty good. So the other things that we have to talk about are some of Kieran in particular's visionary goals. Now, partnerships with brands, we talked about that briefly. A Netflix series, we've all been talking about that. I don't think that's even going to begin until like 2024. So don't get your hopes up. Movies, probably the same, 2025 maybe. The largest esports tournament in the world. If we see the game launch in Q3 2023, I think we could get a big esports competition with the largest prize pool in the world and everything by the end of the year. But if the game drops a lot later, then you're looking mid-Q 2024. I think you're looking about 6 months after the game's dropped before we can get a really massive esports tournament. But it's on my radar, and if I was still in council, I'd definitely be pushing to get that happening ASAP. I think it's gonna be really powerful, the game, but you're gonna make sure the game is ready as well. So there's all that to consider. And then the last thing we're gonna talk about is Illuvifest. So I don't wanna go too deep, and it's probably gonna be held in Sydney, but obviously it could be held anywhere. Although I know Kieran wants it to be in Australia because he knows a lot of Australian artists and things like that. that. And there's going to be large crypto personalities, lots of Illuvium testing personalities, all the rest of it, hanging out and discussing panels, all the rest of it, and a music festival of some kind where you're going to have lots of different artists, concerts, playing rock bands, I don't know. You're going to have lots of different things. It's going to be all in one massive event, and that will bring everyone together. But not only that, but this sort of thing, especially music festivals, can engage mainstream really well. And Kieran talked about it really well on the YouTube video where they basically broke down Illuvium in 2022 and what's coming for 2023. And I'll leave the link down in the description down below. But there's so much happening. There's so much to get excited for. I can't wait to share Illuvium with you all in 2023. And let's go for 10K subscribers. Why not? So don't forget to subscribe to this video if you liked this sort of content. If you want to see more of it, or when do you think things are going to come out, leave a comment down below and I'll make sure to catch them all and tell you if I think you're right or if you're probably wrong, just like I am. Have a good day, everyone.